Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another animation analysis video. And ladies and gentlemen, I figured the big boy got a big easy A. We took a look at his other int counterpart. It's really weird how both of these guys are int. I don't know, if I had a... What's that one quote from Doofenshmirtz? If I had a nickel for every time, blah, 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 you know, two int Goku Blacks got an easy at the same time. You know, I have two nickels, and that's pretty weird that it happened twice. Exactly this scenario, ladies and gentlemen. Except this guy is definitely a little bit better than the int counterpart. He is int. The TUR counterpart. But, of course, how do the animations fare against each other? That is what we're going to be taking a look at today. Obviously, we took a look at Int Goku Black, the Dokkan Fest TURs recently, so I wanted to go back and take a look at the boy LR Goku Black now and see how he fares. I do remember going back and looking at this guy's animations for a top 5 best and worst of the year that he came out. And I remember seemingly not really liking his animations then. The thing to keep in mind is that this is obviously an older unit now, right? This guy came out during the 5th anniversary of Dokkan, and we are slowly approaching onto the 9th anniversary that will be this February. So he is quite old, so we need to keep that in mind. However, the other thing to keep in mind is that this was the Part 2 anniversary unit that came out after STR Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. And his animations still hold up till today. So, let's go ahead and hop into it. We're going to watch his animations one time through first, and then of course we will kind of take a look at them in the slow-mo as well. We do have a comparison video too, because I did want to take a look at this guy's animations compared to what was in the anime. So of course, shout out to the boy DBZ Monkey as well as Clash X for providing today's videos. Of course, both of the links to these videos on their channel, so will be in the description below. But, as per usual, I always do like to give a little disclaimer with these videos that I'm by no means an animation professional or anything like that. I just look at Dokkan essays all the time, and I feel like I know what makes a pretty good Dokkan essay. Now, obviously we have the 12-key super attack and the 18-key super attack to look at for Goku Black. And then we, of course, have the Rage transformation because he has that mechanic. I think the thing that makes this guy's animations so, like, disappointing for me personally, and, like, I don't even think they're really that bad, all things considered. Maybe except for Rosie's 12 key. That one is pretty stinky. It's just, like, one PNG, basically. But the thing that's so, like, unfortunate to me is that this came out, again, like I said, right after STR Gogeta, who still has animations that stand up to today, and his animations were the gold standard for animations for a really, really long time in Dokkan Battle. His animations look like they're ripped right out of Dragon Ball Super, and even now, or Dragon Ball Super Broly, I should say. And even now, right, obviously, even though we've gotten better versions of the character, his animations still look really good by today's standards. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 12-key super. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the super attack, and then we'll take a look at the comparison video. So starting us off here, right, we have a very nice looking PNG of Goku Black, I will say. I do like the beginning of this. Obviously, this is also his TUR. That's what this specific, like, piece of art is also from. So they have the Kamehameha form in his hands, the Black Kamehameha, I believe it's called. And weirdly enough, right, so this was one thing that always tripped me up about this super attack. First of all, I do like the lighting, right? I really like the lighting, how it goes from this sort of, like, look of just nothing there to it being really illuminated to being pink. I really like that quite a bit. Sorry, I'm burping up a storm. I don't know why. But it looks really cool, right? As well, interestingly enough, this Rosé asset here, it's kind of a bit of a weird one because I don't think that it's exactly the same as Int Goku Black's, but it definitely looks extremely similar to Int Goku Black. And not to mention, this asset in particular, I've always wanted to mention this in a video, so I'm glad I'm getting the opportunity to mention in a video. For some reason, it always reminded me of like a Goku Black summon animation. Like every time I looked at this, I swear that this guy, right, looked like he was supposed to be like the Goku pullback summon screen, but like a rose version. I don't think that's what the actual intention of this was, but it just kind of reminds me of that. So I do believe, right, it is a little bit hard to tell. This was unfortunately the only screenshot that I could find like within 2 seconds, because I know I retweeted this, talking about the 17 and 18 essay, how this Goku very much so looks like the Int Goku Black one. But I don't know if it is the exact same asset used, right? And obviously the screenshot is very low quality, but I am pretty sure that this is the same Goku Black as the Int Goku Black. It is not unheard of, right, for them to reuse assets. It would not be the first time that I have seen them do that, but it is always a little bit unfortunate when they do, because I'm like, man, I wish they would just make something original. But I understand, because obviously if it's taken from the same scene, I mean, like, what else do you do besides reference the original source material? The only other thing I wanted to say regarding this section, right, with this, is that the lasers and the lighting that comes out of the key is really weirdly animated. I feel like I've never seen this in another Dokkan animation. So this is fine with like the beams coming out, right? But then it goes behind him like this. I mean, I guess that's technically correct. Like, you can see when it gets to his hand here, right? They just have it kind of dissipate instead. But, oh my gosh, that skips a lot. It's so weird that it just, like, kind of disappears behind him for some of them. But then you can see, like, this one, it kind of lingers there for a second before going behind him. I guess that's technically how the beams would work, but I feel like it just looks so strange. I don't know. Maybe they didn't have another way to animate that, or maybe that's how it looks in the anime. We'll see in about 5 seconds here. But, obviously then, we have Goku Black charging up the super attack here, right? Which we talked about with the funny, quote-unquote, summon animation Goku Black, with the same thing, the Ki Blast spinning. And then we have the enemy sprite Zamasu come in and grab the actual enemy sprite, right? Well, I guess technically that Zamasu sprite is, like, the good Zamasu sprite. I don't know, because it's obviously part of the animation, right? This is, of course, when Zamasu grabs the enemy. And then we have Goku Black fire off the Kamehameha after the card art is shown here, right? With this section right here, with a little bit of movement before just having another PNG of Goku Black with the sort of light kind of enveloping the screen from the Kamehameha, right? Now, regarding this section, I do like the very anime-esque background, right? And it's nice to see that they had Goku Black animated a little bit, right? With his arms and his legs moving a little bit for this part. Also, very symmetrical lines here. That looks really weird. Like, it looks almost like cheap or something like that. Like a cheap knockoff of the animation. But then obviously after this, right, the transition is a simple, you know, fade in between the assets here, which I think is fine, I suppose. But when this is then launched off, right, I feel like the explosion is honestly the best part about this animation. This beam looks fine, obviously, going towards the enemy. And then we have this very nice, you know, half circle cloud of energy here, right, that is bellowing up behind the city. Now, here's my problem with this animation, right? It's okay. But, first of all, this, right, whole thing that they do, I like what they try and do with this, where Zamasu grabs the enemy character. This is also a bit of a Dokkan Sprite L, so I'm not going to give this to Dokkan Battle as much of a hard time. But by golly, when this is on certain different body types of characters, it looks awful. Oh my gosh, like especially giant characters, this looks absolutely terrible. Now, my main problem with this essay, right, is that it is essentially just 5 PNGs, right? It's this PNG of Goku Black, right, charging up the Kamehameha. We got the reused one, right, then, from Int Goku Black, right? Where did it go? Hello? There. We have this one, right, number 2, right? And then we have the Kamehameha one, right, which is 3. Granted, this one does move a little bit, right? Then we have 4, right? Actually, it's more like 4. And then we have that one. And that's it. And again, normally I would be like, oh, well, you know, it's not that big of a deal because it's an older essay. But again, this came out right after STR Gogeta, bro. You're telling me we went from that amazing quality of animation to this? Let's take a look at the anime version of this and see how this fares. Because even though a lot of the animation, right, looking back at the Goku Black arc, right, is not necessarily the best by today's standards, right, I still feel like the anime's version is a little bit better, right? Obviously, they do have the same main couple of beats, right, where it is the, you know, charging of the Kamehameha, which I actually do like the Dokkan art better than, funny enough, the way the anime is like just a piece of art there looks. Then obviously we have this shot of Goku Black from the back, which, to be fair, they definitely could have changed this because the way he's looking doesn't really make sense, right? Like, obviously in the anime he's actually like looking at them, but here he's like just looking off to the side, or like, I don't even know where technically he would be looking there, but obviously him charging it up, right? This is, of course, the Masu section. And then, right, after he actually fires it, right, I much prefer the anime's close-up version. I'm not sure if they didn't think that they could, like, replicate this from the anime or something like that, because I think it would have been way cooler to see this kind of, like, super close-up shot of Goku Black, right, obviously zooming in, right, like this, right, kind of coming past the screen in that way before then blasting the Kamehameha, because they kind of do it in a more like, I don't know, and the transition in the anime is super clean, right? Obviously going down to Goku Black's hands, right, having your focus be on the ball and then turning around the perspective, right, to then be from the side there. That's just so cool. But in the Dokkan Battle version, they basically keep it like front facing the entire time, right? It goes from this, right, with him kind of coming at the screen, to then the straightforward Kamehameha. And again, I know this is an older essay, but I just feel like they could have done it better, personally, in my opinion. Again, especially considering the animation that we had just gotten. Now, this shot, right, I think it's fine that they didn't include Goku Black for this, right? Obviously, this particular shot is literally, if you guys watch the Int Goku Black video with the Dokkan Fest run, right, you would know that they literally use this exact shot for the ending of his super attack. So I'm guessing that they probably just didn't want to do the same thing again. And I think the explosion effect looks just fine, right? But it's just a shame that it's just so, like, underwhelming, I guess. And the Kamehameha doesn't even really feel like it has a lot of weight to it, to be honest with you, either. Alright, so now moving on to the 18 key. First of all, gotta love this part, right? This is a classic Dokkan Battle meme with Goku Black teleporting off the screen here. Obviously, as well, again, this is using the SSR art for this particular asset here. I think this is fine with the PNG just disappearing because, I mean, I guess I'll just show you in this little bit, right? Obviously, for this part, right, that is exactly what happens, right? Goku Black is literally just standing there and then disappears. I think the difference is just in the Dokkan Battle version, he's on screen for a lot longer than he is in the anime, right? He kind of lingers there for a moment before disappearing. But then, of course, we have him appear behind the enemy, give a quick knee before the, oh man, that spin, bro. Oh, yucky. This looks like a flash animation from like years ago. That spin is definitely not it. Obviously then stretching the asset a little bit before going out with the kick, right, to push Goku away, and then dashing towards him. I do like this transition, I will say, into that animation. But I feel like, I know that this scene is far away in the anime, but I just feel like they could have done this so much better than this awkward looking flip here, right? I feel like it could have just looked a lot better, again, especially considering what was available at the time, and seeing characters flip around in those animations and then going to this is just like, man, what a downgrade. I do like this section, I will say. It's always kind of felt a little bit choppy, but I do quite like all the little rapid fire slashes that Goku Black does give, right? I do think that that is a pretty cool part of the essay. I think it's just for me, right? Maybe it's just supposed to be like the implication of him really slamming down the blast. By the way, I do love this transition of him like cutting the screen like that, right? And then coming into frame. I think it's just for me, it's literally like two poses basically, right? They have this, right? With Goku Black swinging his arm down. And then obviously, you know, they do move him a little bit here, which I appreciate. But then, you know, it's basically up and then they're immediately into the next slash, right? With at least a little bit of movement on him, like his arms moving and stuff like that. But again, right, it is basically just a single pose into another with a little bit of movement in between. I just kind of wish the animation was a little bit more fluid, honestly. But then we obviously have the final slash with the enemy then getting blasted into the ground. I do like, I will say, they do give a little bit of perspective to the buildings. I never noticed that before. It kind of makes this look 3D, right? Obviously, after the enemy flies and hits the ground, you can see the buildings are kind of like, you know, or I guess it's more like the camera is almost like shaking, right? With the buildings kind of shaking independently of the enemy. That is cool to kind of give it a little bit of a 3D effect, right? It makes it look like you're looking at a 3D environment. Then we, of course, have the boys... I never noticed that before. That's so funny, the way that they fix the camera right there, right? Like, obviously, Zamasu teleports in, and they just go, whoop! That's really funny. I mean, that's a great way to do it. I'm sure that that's how they did in the anime. It just looks kind of silly. Yeah, this I never really liked with the way that they did this. So, obviously, they have, right, the arms going up, but then it's just a quick fade into the PNGs rising of these elongated arms. I really wish that they would have just animated this properly with having the arm go up like that. But then obviously we have the two energy balls form over their head and kind of form into one. And I will say, I do think this part of the Dokkan animation does look pretty good, right? Obviously we have the card art pop up on the screen here. And then we have them launch the energy. I love the lighting on them too, that is kind of reflecting off of them from the energy ball, right? And then obviously the perspective of the energy ball crashing down into the enemy with the very cool explosion effect there, right? And the actual explosion too, not just the like key blast explosion effect. Both look really, really good in my opinion. But yeah, I think that it's just simple things for this whole animation, right? For this whole like unit, really, that I feel like it's just little things that they could have done to improve on it, right? Like, look how nice the animation looks in the anime for, you know, the slashes and those rapid fire punches and kicks. Again, right, I think that this part is fine, right? I think that they did a good job representing this scene well enough, right? Even the explosion effect, if we take a look at that in slow motion, right? With the way that it explodes. Dokkan mimics even the explosion just like so incredibly well. It's crazy to me how they try and pack in details like this sometimes, right? Like even the way the explosions move are the same between the two, which is kind of wild. But yeah, I wanted to look at, just the thing I wanted to see in like more detail was this section here. With after the teleport, right? The punches and kicks. I don't know. It's just a lot more fluid. And obviously, again, this is a little bit of an older animation, so I can't be too hard on it. But still, I just feel like with what was there at the time, they could have done better. But yeah, then obviously the slashes look a lot more fluid in the anime too, right? It's just those couple extra frames that really put it together, honestly, for me. Oh, the funny Vegeta meme. I didn't even realize this is supposed to be Vegeta in this scene. That's interesting that they have it as Blue Goku. That's kind of funny. But yeah, moving on to the Rage transformation. I will say this is definitely one of the best animations in this whole section, right? Obviously, Goku Black stabbing the Keyblade into his hand. I love the smoke effects coming off of that. I always thought that that looked pretty good. And the animation of him actually grabbing it looks great. Pulling it out, right? Obviously kind of just stretching out the Keyblade too, to then swinging it around forward. Does look pretty cool. The only thing that I was always a little bit tripped about with this part, right, is this quick little change here, right? We have this part where he's holding it back and then bam. I wish there was a little bit more of him actually whipping it around, right? Rather than just having it go from behind him, or I guess more like out his side, to then being in front of him. But I do like the slash across the screen quite a bit. And then obviously we have this very iconic shot of Goku Black holding up the scythe right next to him, right? Which looks really, really good. And I like the way that the aura is animated around the scythe too. They definitely did a very good job on that as well. Slashing it through the screen, I do quite like that transition a lot. It is a little bit of a jump scare, honestly, but obviously, you know, it's a cool bit of like just, I don't know, animation, I suppose, where obviously you can see the actual like scythe like slashing through the screen, and that's the only thing that's on screen with then the effects following through. I think that is really, really cool. And then obviously, of course, him holding it after having followed through, that animation does look really nice, if I do say so myself. With him whipping it forward, I do like that part. That part is very well animated. I always thought this transformation looked pretty cool, honestly, even back in the day. If we take a look at it in the anime version as well, they did a pretty good job replicating it, right? I think if this one was made in the modern day, I would love to see that the way that Dokkan could improve upon this, because even back then it still looked really good. But I think that they can make it look even better by today's standards, right? Like different pieces of how it's animated in the anime, just like the slight differences comparatively so. And obviously, like, the anime just has a couple more frames in between a lot of those pose changes. Oh, I didn't even notice the light on the Dokkan version reflecting off of the scythe. That's really cool. I did not notice that until looking at it just now. Yeah, that is not in the anime, though, but I really like that transition. I still think it's super cool. And obviously, right, it's a little bit different in the angle in the anime version, but I actually think for the sake of the transformation animation, I think Dokkan did a good job adapting it, right? Which is kind of ironic because I don't like the way that they changed the angle for the 12-key super, but I definitely think that this works a lot better for a Dokkan Battle animation, having it be at this angle, which is just kind of funny. Okay, so now moving on to the 12-key super attack for the boy Goku Black, right? We do have him lift the scythe above his head, and obviously, with the card art appearing, I believe this one is the... Yeah, so, I don't know. That animation right there was always super unfluid to me. When he's spinning around, this is so yucky to me. Like, going from oh, jeez, STR Goku Black cameo, oof. It's just not very fluid. And again, the only reason I'm critiquing it this hard is because this was right after STR Gogeta, who had some of the most fluid animations we've seen in Dokkan history. And you're telling me this is the best that they could do for the spin? And I don't even feel like it's supposed to be like this sort of anime-esque, like, oh, climactic spin. I love the way that that key looks, though. I don't know, because even if we look here, right, it's definitely not that slow in the version from the anime, right? I definitely like that beginning bit, too, where they focus on the scythe. I did not even notice that either. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot more fluid, right? Looking at... Oh, wait, what? Does he not even spin in the anime version? Oh. Well, no wonder. No wonder it looks a little bit choppy, because back then, I guess you'd consider that a Dokkan original. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Well, obviously, after this section, right, Goku Black throws the key forward, which looks really good. I like the way that the key is animated there a lot. And, obviously, then kind of cutting through the screen, which looks fantastic. They always cook with that. And then the portal appearing, which looks awesome, right? This section is definitely super cool. That shot right there is just peak right there, peak. I remember when I saw that part of the LR's animations, I was like, whoo, baby, that is sick. And obviously, that's a pretty cool like implication of transition, right? Because obviously then later in the 18 key, the portal is sort of more focused on, but it's kind of cool that the 12 key, right, like almost like opens the portal, and then the 18 key is what, you know, the attacks that come out of it. I will say, I guess it almost kind of doesn't make sense because, of course, usually with additional attacks, the 18 key would come first and then the 12 key, but obviously I don't think they were thinking that deeply about it, and obviously usually, you know, in your mind, the 12 key comes first. But yeah, obviously taking a look at this, right, it's really interesting they decided not to include a spin on this. Sometimes Dokkan does do this type of thing where they try and implement a little bit of extra animation to make the Dokkan version of it flow a little bit better in terms of a actual attack, right, to kind of make the attacks a little bit more sensible. Oh no, he does spin. Okay, never mind. I guess it was just cut weird for the video. Interesting. Well, disregard that entire point then. But that is true, though. Sometimes they do that for Dokkan. Regardless, though, the spin, I feel like, definitely just looks a little bit less choppy in the anime version, right? You can see, like, the full turn kind of come to fruition there. The key looks really good in the Dokkan version, though. Holy cow. And obviously, it missing Vegeta with him teleporting to the side. But, of course, in the Dokkan version, the whole implication is that not only does it hit, but obviously, you know, then that's what opens the portal. Which, I mean, to be fair, it is what opens the portal in the anime version as well. But that's kind of funny that actually Vegeta is there. Huh. That's also really weird, too, to think about. Because it's almost like the attack, like, doesn't even land on the anime, right? And I mean, I guess you could kind of say the same for Dokkan, right? Because it's just like the blast flies forward, but it does cut against the screen, which kind of has the implication of attacking. But is this one of the only super attacks in the game where you don't see the enemy sprite? You don't see the enemy sprite whatsoever in that animation, huh? That's really interesting. I'm learning a lot about this guy's animations that I did not know before this video. This is really interesting. Okay. So now moving on to the final animation, the 18-key super attack. We have this shot of Goku Black charging forward. I will say, I do like this one. I do like the little bit of movement on the arms. And, not to mention, I do like when Goku Black gets close to the screen, they kind of blur him a little bit here. That is a really cool effect to kind of imply speed. Then, of course, we have Goku Black hit the enemy with then the clones forming to attack, right? This animation, again, super simple. It's so weird because, like, the actual animation of the clones forming from, like, the smog, I guess is what you would call it, right? Is, like, so detailed, right? The way that they kind of, like, form together and come into existence, right? Is so, like, animated super well, and you're like, holy cow, that's a Dokkan animation? That looks amazing. But then all of, like, the punches and kicks are literally just one sprite standing there, changing to either a wind-up and a punch, or just a punch, with maybe a little bit of stretching the asset. And I don't know, I know that it's just supposed to be like this, you know, tossing around the character, like, kind of rapid-fire sort of thing, but I still feel like they could have, you know, just cooked it a little bit better. Because it feels a little bit underwhelming. I mean, to be fair, I guess it feels a little bit underwhelming with, you know, all of, like, sprites that are this small for a scene like this, right? Where it is supposed to be this impactful. But, right, I do understand, I guess. But at the same time, right, like, the anime's version of the clones still had them pretty close up, even though it was, like, these quick little beatdowns. But I still feel like they could have had some, like, cooler close-up shots, maybe, for the clones attacking. And this flip, obviously, right, is just kind of like 3 different frames there, right? But then, of course, kicking the enemy sprite back to the normal Goku Black with him holding the scythe out in front of him. With a little bit of a zoom in then, a cut to the zoom of Goku Black. I always thought his face looked a little bit strange here. But then we have the card art appear on the screen. Then transitioning into Goku Black coming down to then smack Goku with a very nice slash again across the screen, making another portal. Whoa! Which also the portal animation, I gotta say, looks fantastic. And we get the final KO screen as well, with the really, really cool effect in Goku Black's eye before him having his arms stretch out to the side. Now, I will say, the cool thing about this animation, right, if we go back to the beginning of the comparison here, is in HD? I feel like this doesn't look like 1080p. Maybe it's just because the Dokkan animation is not, like, super high quality. If we take a look at this, right, with Goku Black, it is pretty cool because a lot of these are references to fighters, right, with the portal thing. Because obviously, you know, they weren't necessarily, like, right next to the portal, right, or the space-time rift, right? And as you can see, these animations are pretty quick for all the different clones attacking, right? Even that one's not even one of the clones, ironically enough. That's just regular Goku Black. But, I don't know. Oh, and this one, is, funny enough, isn't even a clone either. That's not even from the same scene where they have that little flip kick. But then, obviously, coming towards Goku Black's face, We then have, I believe the card art will appear on this part of the screen. And this is when the majority of the fighter's animation then begins to appear, right? Where Goku Black obviously flipping around the scythe, right? Then kind of leads into the slash, right? Across the screen, which then opens up the double space-time rift, which obviously you can see present in this animation. So it is cool that they have that little reference to fighters there. And I will say, I did not even remember this being from the anime, to be honest, but this little thing with the KO screen where they have the, like, portals effects in Goku Black's eye, right, is part of the anime. And the scene then goes to this one where I guess this must be it. I guess there's not a scene of him lifting up his arms like this when he's in Rose. I guess this must be the closest thing. And Dokkan just decided to kind of do a little bit of a Dokkan original. So it's interesting, right? Because this whole animation has a lot of things from fighters. It does have a lot of the stuff from the anime where they're referencing the portal part. But it's kind of interesting to me from the fact that a lot of it is actually Dokkan original, right? Like with obviously the part where it zooms in on Rose's face right before the card art appears and whatnot, right? It's just interesting that even back then, right, they were still trying to do some Dokkan original stuff, and seeing how it compares to the anime is just always really interesting to see then how the Dokkan animations compare as a result. I don't know. For me personally, right, with this guy, I think that he is very cool, right? I think that there's no denying that his animations are very cool to look at. I mean, anything with Super Saiyan Rose just looks really cool, right? I just think that personally, his animations could have been a lot better considering the fact that STR Gogeta came out right before him. I know I sound like a broken record in saying that, but I remember even when I wasn't as like crazy in depth about looking at animations, right, with these animation analysis videos and whatnot, even back then, I was a lot more like disappointed with these guys' animations, especially coming out of Vegito and Gogeta, right? I looked at this guy and I was like, you're expecting me to summon for this after I just summoned for peak Dokkan animation? Are you kidding me, bro? But nonetheless, he does still have a lot of cool stuff in this. And it really even makes me want, like, looking at these animations, really makes me want a new Rose. It really stinks that we did not get one during the Worldwide Celebration. But seeing these animations really makes me want an updated version of his super attacks that would look super awesome. I really hope that they are looking to save him for a either like giant upcoming celebration or his own Dokkan Fest, where they give him some animations that would really cook. But let me know what you think of his animations. I feel like this is one of those units for me personally, right? I always like to specify when I make these videos because there are animations that I can think from a like analytical perspective, right, that I think don't really look the best, but I can still enjoy them, right, for what they are and get like personal enjoyment out of them, and they're just fun, you know what I mean? I think that's a good way to describe it. Like, that's almost kind of how I feel about like Gohan Least, not the Gohan Beast active skill, obviously that's fantastic, but like his 12 key and his 18 key, I really love those animations a lot, like personally, and I think they're a lot of fun, but I think like when critiquing them and looking at them analytically, they're not necessarily the best. So for me, I feel like I'm able to differentiate for that, and I feel like this unit kind of embodies that a ton for me personally, because I always love looking at these animations, but I'm always just like, dang, I feel like they could have done a little bit better. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely let me know your thoughts, and if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Personally, I think I honestly take Int Rose, the Dokkan Fest one, over this guy, which is kind of crazy to think, but obviously I'm not an easy A, unfortunately, but definitely an animation for me personally. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.